The very first nurse I knew was my grandmother, Mama. She was a nurse, midwife actually, for her entire village. On the heels of Nurses Week, I'd like to dedicate this to her loving memory and all nurses who get into and out of grit. When I first heard the theme was grit for tonight, I immediately thought of Flo. How many of you remember Flo from the TV show Alice? Well, as you know, Flo was not a nurse, but she wore a cap and she did provide service. And she was famous for saying, say it with me, "Kiss my grits." With 3 little words, Flo unlocked her superpower. Albeit different than Flo, I had my share of injustices. But I knew, as a brown girl, if I told people to kiss my grits, things would not turn out too well. But we can use grits as a recipe for unlocking our superpowers. This photo is of my family in 1973, before my dad left India for the US. Exactly a year later, my mom used her superpower to bring my siblings and I all the way over to join him and start our new life together. My siblings and I were known as ABCDs, American Bred Confused Desis, Indians. We had our share of challenges, but together we provided each other support and with our parents, a lovingness that gave us a sense of belonging and grounding. I got familiar with healthcare from a young age, rounding with my pastor dad, my mom always telling me to wash my hands, and volunteering in the children's ward. But I had weird symptoms that no doctor could diagnose. My parents took me to doctor and doctor over and over to no avail. Until one day, with a very high fever, I ended up in the hospital for a week. They ran a lot of tests, didn't have a clue. Young doctor wanted to do surgery, open me up and find out what was going on. But the senior physician just laughed and said, "She's just got a virus. When she's better, she can go home." Having pelvic and joint pains over and over was very hard, but it wasn't my main concern. I had some good friends, but there were a few kids in school who always made sure to be mean to me every single day. I didn't know how to respond, so I didn't. Back then, I was like a seed stuck in the mud. I was bullied for different reasons, being the shortest, the darkest, and worst, dirty. Why didn't her skin come clean? You see that Fair and Lovely cream? I tried to use it to make my skin lighter, but it just didn't work. I was like a seed stuck in the mud, struggling to sprout. But I realized that I had to find my own ways to be resilient. So I decided that I was going to take my steps, wash off the negative energy, and become stronger. Being a morning person, instinct drew me down to the living room where I could sing and dance at 5:30 in the morning and no one could hear me. One day, I decided to turn the TV on and see what the magic box had to offer me. Lo and behold, with the turn of a knob, Joni Greggins was in the living room leading me through morning stretch. Joni and I spent many mornings together, but I still can't do a side split. You know, the one where your legs go all the way out like this. However, I still have a morning routine. It just looks a little different, something like this. In college, I shifted my view of brown from negative to positive. The old Indian mantra, the muddier the water, the more beautiful the lotus, became my favorite saying. Like a lotus, we are all different shapes, sizes, and colors, but where all our edges are round, and we're 99% the same. Before I went to nursing, I decided that I was gonna work, volunteer, and work different jobs. But along the way, I met 2 inspiring nurse practitioners, and nursing taught me that with 2 ears and gentle hands, I could provide compassionate and safe care. Coupled with yoga, I could set an intention, and shift energy. But unfortunately, my doctors never heard me. And one night, a decade later, I woke up in the middle of the night with sharp pains. I was hemorrhaging internally. I ended up in the hospital again with a very high fever. And 3 surgeries later, I lost the one thing I imagined most, biological motherhood. You know the infamous white tunnel? I saw it. But I'm grateful that I'm still here. If you forced this flower to blossom, you'd break off the petals, right? Well, pain is inevitable, but hope is always there. And no matter what stage of life we're in, gratitude is always appropriate and healing. Like a lotus, I'm still whole. 9 years later, missing organs, but I'm still here. And like a lotus, we can dip down and garner the energy to sprout back up again. When we feel gritty, we want to move and change, but with movement, we can still feel our roots and stretch and grow. We need space, like a lotus too, to dip down and garner the energy to sprout like a flower. From seed to bloom, we can see our entire lives in front of us. Reflect on the stages of growth and be there to support others who don't get the nourishment they need. Balancing our senses with grounding, replenishment, intention, thankfulness, and creating space for ourselves and others unleashes a power that is not over anyone or under anyone. It's just present, a superpower. And with that knowing, we can kiss our grits. Y como mi amor dice, no más té, solo café, Miami. Thank you for listening and being present.